All right, well, good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for joining the first session of our Spark New Growth webinar series. This is going to be focused on developing your e-commerce strategy for manufacturing. We are so pleased that Jeffrey Graham was able to step in for today's session on digital transformation for manufacturers. As I shared in my email yesterday, our original presenter fell ill. Jeffrey stepped up and has pulled together a great session for us today. My name's Emily Lee, and I am the Program and Partner Relations Coordinator with IMEC. And as you may know, IMEC is a team of industry improvement specialists, and our goal is to ignite manufacturing excellence in Illinois. So training, much like this series, helps to connect manufacturers to the tools and resources that can help you to build your competitive future through continued business growth. We will get started in a minute with the session. Just a couple of quick reminders. First off, thanks for keeping your phones and microphones on mute. We are recording today's webinar, and the webinar recording will be shared by email later on this afternoon. As any questions come up during today's presentation, please go ahead and submit them using the chat window. I'll present those questions to Jeffrey either as we're going through. We can also have some Q&A time at the end for maybe some of those bigger questions that come up throughout the session. So again, please go ahead and use that chat window. That's a great way to get your questions answered from our experts. So with that, let's go ahead and get started. So please join me in welcoming Jeffrey Graham for today's session. Jeff?
Well, thank you, Emily. I appreciate it. Yeah, it was kind of a short notice thing. I got called yesterday afternoon. I was like, can you fill in? So glad to be here. First and foremost, just want to thank everybody for taking the time to listen and be a part of this. So I'll kind of run through, and try to stay on time, and please ask questions. I don't, I guess I'm not the kind of guy that likes to just talk at people. I like interaction. I like effort from that side. So if you have a question or you have a concern or something you want clarity on, ask away. I'm an open book. I figured I would just kind of kick it off with talking a little bit about myself. I hate to do it. As you see on my slide here, it's like the littlest amount or the smallest amount of text. But I'm a founder. I founded my first consulting firm years ago. I co-founded Exit Your Way, which is essentially an M&A advisory firm that grows and sells companies. I've been in sales my entire career. A little bit about my past. Built my first website in '98 when I was in high school, and on Front Page, I don't know, some of you may remember Front Page. Rode motorcycles for a living for 5 years. Got to travel the world. Was a fun experience. Broke a lot of bones in that process. Sold my first website in 2005. And then I sold sites at auction in my spare time for years. I've had owned and sold over 1,000 domains. I sold my first software company to a group of Microsoft in 2012. And I started my first consulting firm in 2014. And then I guess going on, I've had about in the last 6 years about close to $1 billion in internet sales for companies and clients I've worked with over the last 6 years. And started University of eCommerce, which really we sold, essentially built e-com courses, and those are sold through Ivy League schools, quite a few Ivy League schools throughout the US. And then DMI, Digital Marketing Institute, uses some of my course content. And then, I am really excited that this week's kind of an interesting week because we just founded a new cooperative called the eCommerce Management Cooperative, and it's focused and built around helping manufacturers in a cooperative environment grow online, essentially bringing all the resources we have in e-commerce, all the folks we know, all the people we've worked with throughout the years, and allowing the opportunity for the little guy to compete with the big guy, i.e. the Amazons of the world. I've spoken at South by Southwest, the Digital Summit, the Association of Financial Professionals. I've spoken at Google headquarters, which was fun, but a little awkward, a lot of engineers there. But yeah, so for the most part, that's a little bit about my past. Just, don't want to bore you all day with that. But we're talking a bit about digital disruption, and especially for manufacturers, it's happening faster than ever. And the chart here on the right, I put this up strictly to just show the change that we had, COVID being a big part of that. But this chart goes from 2010 to the first quarter of 2020, and we've had a 6-year. Essentially, if you took 6 years and put them together, we had that in one quarter. So kind of a steady trend of growth in e-commerce sales, and then suddenly it was just this, this hockey stick monster spike, and that's created both opportunity but problems for folks, especially manufacturing companies, because it's eroded a lot of the channels in which we sell to. So I'll move on to this next slide. Also, if you have any questions, please ask. I hate death by PowerPoint, but I figured we'd put this together. So as everyone's involved in manufacturing, I myself have worked with tons of manufacturers, love manufacturing, love building things, built cars, like working with my hands. So I'm a huge fan of manufacturing companies. But as e-commerce takes over and this digital world becomes more prevalent, the push for convenience, efficiency, of course, customer satisfaction, it's eroding the channels in which traditional manufacturers sold through distribution, through resellers and things. And so that sense is kind of eroding away. And now a lot of manufacturing companies are now having to pivot towards an e-commerce strategy. And although I think from the outside looking in, it's like, hey, this is easy. We don't have to buy a CNC machine. We don't have to buy, do all these things. We could just get a website up and we'll be off and running. But we'll kind of talk a little bit about what's involved. So as we know, traditional sales channels that you probably have used in the past are fading, at a faster rate than anticipated. I kind of figured this was going to happen in about 4 years. I figured in 4 years from now, we would probably be seeing, what's happening today starting to happen then, but over a 4-year, nice, slow, gradual curve. But now we basically all been forced into it happening right away. So unfortunately for us, we have to adjust, we have to make moves, we have to make changes, and that just seems to happen quicker and quicker. So the good thing though is it creates an opportunity for a manufacturer. Since manufacturers' margins have been eroded over the years through channel, we can now work on removing channel partners in some aspects and cutting out the middleman and getting our margins back. So there are some benefits to this e-commerce strategy and essentially pivoting to where the world's going to go anyways. The biggest thing that I see at risk is manufacturers tend to be at the largest risk, I think, when it comes to evolving quick enough. Everyone in this group is probably really good at making things and understands everything that's involved in that. The issue is now you have to figure out how to merchandise it and sell it, when it used to be your channel partner that did that. So manufacturers, I think, that aren't investing in e-commerce right now are really putting themselves at a huge disadvantage. Could be catastrophic if not taken serious. And ultimately we have to build a foundation for manufacturing companies to be able to excel and exceed online, and then of course grow. So we'll talk a little bit about that in some detail on this next slide. Any questions on this one, or any questions about what I've talked about so far? I can't see the chat, I don't think, because my screen's full. So Emily, was there anything
Nope.
there that came in? Okay,
No questions so far.
cool. All right. So I'm going to kind of give a hit list, and some of you already might be doing this. You might already have a website, you might already be selling on the internet, and that's great. That's exciting. You're one step ahead of the rest. But I always look at strategy comes first. If before people spend a penny on website, on cart, on hiring somebody or whatever, build a strategy, develop a strategy, make sure that you have a clear defined path of where you want to go, what market you want to hit, how you want to get there. The other thing that is a monster that people don't talk about, I don't think enough, is the staffing challenges that manufacturers face. So you have staffing capabilities internally, so who works within the company organization, the retraining that might be involved if capable. You might have someone that's really talented, you can retrain and then they'll do a great job. You might have somebody that just isn't built for the internet game and has to move into a different role. The biggest thing too I've seen with manufacturers is that employees have a monster fear, whenever you decide to make a change, especially to a digital space where someone's uncomfortable or they aren't familiar, they've been a sales guy through their channels for years, and now you want them to sell on the internet. The fear of being replaced is a big one, even if it isn't your intention. Then on top of those fears and anxieties that you'll get from your team and your staff, you're going to have remote work challenges. That's measuring. How do you measure, your remote workforce, in e-commerce? How do you measure your remote workforce, period? So because it is e-commerce, people tend to have a lot more leeway and flexibility working remote versus being on a line, being in packaging, being in receiving. You can't do that remotely, right? So this is going to create some challenges, and you have to have controls in place in order to make sure that you're getting what you can out of your business, and the team's happy and flourishing. The next piece is really e-commerce design. Everything from website, building website, what cart choice. The difference between a website and a cart, a lot of you may know already, but a website's a website. It's interface. It's like where your .com. A cart is your checkout, so it's the portion in which that processes your orders. It processes that information. So Shopify is like a website cart. That's one married together. If you had like a WordPress, you'd have a WordPress site, and then you have like a WooCommerce cart, right? So then those would be the cart differences. Some others are cart first, some are cart second. So it just depends on which of those it is. So you got to have cart choice, which one makes sense, where you're at in your ecosystem. Is it a Shopify? Is it a BigCommerce? Is it Magento? And if you guys want to know what those are, just let me know. Multi-channel sales. So a lot of folks are now selling through Marketplace, Walmart, Home Depot, Overstock, Wayfair, Amazon, of course. I've partnerships with all those companies, so I know them well. And then we have the PPC, SEO, SEM stuff that people talk about. SEO companies, and SEM is search engine marketing. I'm sure you guys know that if a lot of you on here are marketers. And then data analytics, how you're mining the data that your website's now producing. So this was kind of a crazy figure I pulled up, that I feel like not even that long ago was like 10,000. But as of 2020, you're looking to figure 25,000 new sites are hitting the internet a day. So that's going to create a lot of problems, because there's still one page of Google that matters, and there's still one page of Bing that matters, and there's still visibility is going to be clouded. Essentially, it's going to be like a packed highway. It's like an LA freeway now. So what we have to deal with is the amount of new websites hitting the internet, and the amount of competition we're dealing with. That's growing an astronomical rate, a rate that none of us have ever seen before. I mean, that's a lot of websites that are new hitting the internet a day. So designing things to make it so your website sticks out amongst 25,000 in one day is going to be a big part, big key component of how you're going to interact. Fun fact, the two most important things when it comes to selling online is trust. People have to trust you. They have to believe that you're legit. And the other thing to garner things from a marketing standpoint is curiosity. Those are two human behaviors that are the most important when it comes to internet sales. They have to trust you, and you have to develop some level of curiosity. So they explore you, they see more, they look for more things. I like designing the customer experience. I know that was a lot of going to be what Allison talked about, was designing the customer experience. Now, if you're all in manufacturing, you understand the manufacturing process. So think of it like a manufacturing process. A customer experience has to have good workflow. It's got to have good efficiency. There's got to be as little of steps as possible in that process. How can we make it quicker? How can we improve quality, and so on? A common trend and theme right now, some of you may be aware of or not be aware of, over the last, I'd say, 6 months, is your FCA, which is first customer acquisition. If you're getting your first customer, a lot of manufacturing companies that are doing things really intelligently, They get an order for a standard shipping item and they ship it out express at their own cost. What happens is the first time someone buys from you, their expectation is, I don't need this for 5 days, so I pick standard shipping. Boom. It shows up in 2 days. They get it and they're like, oh my gosh, I ordered this like 2 days ago. Why is it here? They're happy, they're delighted, you exceeded their expectation, and all you simply did was expedite their shipping. Yeah, you might not make a profit on your first order, but now that customer is going to buy from you again. It's little things like that that will help us win online, and especially help manufacturers set themselves apart from everybody else that's just going to run the same path consistently. So it's a cool trick. You know, you can pay me for that one later. No, I'm just kidding. But that's kind of something that folks are doing that I think build a bit of over deliver under promise. Going into this, this was supposed to be probably broken up into 3 slides, but I just packed it into one. I got yelled at for it this morning, so it's okay. Cost, it's not cheap, and the reality of it, and a lot of you marketers know this, none of this stuff is going to be cheap, but it is a whole lot cheaper than it was in the olden days, where you had to build a website and it could cost you $100,000 in development. You can get away with building a nice, functional, effective site that is integrated with lots of platforms for thousands of dollars, right? So costs involved. Obviously, we have some training. Training and hiring, like I said, a little bit about the fear factor of dealing with the folks that we have working for us is how do we train them? How do we, who do we need to hire? There is no school that's pumping out e-commerce folks. There's courses now. Some of mine are taught out there, of course, but there are courses that exist that allow people to have at least a knowledge base. But there isn't an engineering school, med school that teaches e-com. So this is, and it also evolves so fast that the curriculums can't keep up. So those are some major problems that we're going to run into. We got to train and hire the right people. We got to find the right people. That is hard. It's a bit of a needle in a haystack, but it's good that we're doing things like this that IMEX putting on, because we're finding those needles, and those now are resources for all of you, and we're here to help as best we can. You have website hosting and development cost. You hear the word UX or UI. I'm sure a lot of you marketers know what that means. User experience, user interface. And at the end of the day, what is that? That's just my interaction with something. You have cart choices and cart processes. So everything from abandoning carts, when someone buys on your site and then they leave, do they get abandoned cart emails? What's the frequency of those emails? Should they get one? What makes sense? Email marketing programs, you're all familiar with this. Everyone gets them in their email box every day. These are becoming less effective. Open rates are lower than they've ever been. That's creating a problem. Now we have to find another avenue in which we can reach people, because people aren't opening their email anymore because it's too crowded. So those are hurdles that we're going to have to deal with and overcome, and we have solutions for that stuff. But overall, I just want to kind of set the tone for all the things involved. Now, Google Suite, unfortunately, or fortunately, I guess, depending on how you look at it, we are a slave to Google. Google runs everything. Everything from your Google Analytics, Search Console. If your site's not set up on Search Console, set it up on Search Console. Bing Webmaster Tools. 10% of traffic comes from Bing, if not more now, because stock computers have Bing as Microsoft product is already installed. So if you don't know Firefox or Google Chrome or something, you're going to run on a Bing on like a Bing or on like a Microsoft Edge. And something cool Bing did, I think, that they outdid Google for the first time, I think, ever, was they recently beta launched a piece called, I think it's called Insights or IntelliSights or something like that. And what it does is it shows heat maps, it shows interactions, it shows recordings on your website. Now, we've done that for a long time through independent, like heat maps, specifically like independent providers. But what it does is it really measures your site, like where people are clicking, how they're interacting. You can watch videos, and you can watch the interface that someone's having. You can watch their click-through rates. You can watch how they're interacting with your website if you have it built. And all those things can be done through this new tool. I thought it was really cool. It just happened this like last week and went in beta. So I highly suggest and urge signing up for that. If you're not already on Big Met Webmaster Tools, if you don't have Bing indexed or on a site mapped on there, then do that. It's pretty cool. You got to check it out. I think it's something that they've done one up on Google. Google should have done that a long time ago. And then you have advanced analytics, advanced tracking. That's like, going deeper into the weeds, which we won't go into today because we only have so much time. Of course, shipping, packaging, labels, all the things you already know about, but you're doing small parcel 1-unit sales versus, long run, deeper sales a lot of times. So be thinking of that. Stickers, branding, software. This is a cost a lot of folks don't think about. You think about it from a manufacturing cost. Your software that's involved in your manufacturing business, your ERPs that deal with your manufacturing runs. But when I'm thinking software, I'm thinking of ERPs that are running your e-commerce stores, all of the channels you're selling on, all the marketplaces you're selling on. How are you processing the orders? How are you doing RMAs? How are you dealing with Amazon? So all those things are going to be really important. Your supply chain, which for manufacturers is going to be like, your steel, your components, the things that you need to make. So software is going to be a big part of this, that people don't think about in the e-commerce space, because you want to have a software that does integrate well with the front end of an e-commerce business. Now, marketplaces, let's go down this road. Marketplaces is it's crazy. The big guys have grown to such a point where they're now just gouging sellers. I mean, I remember Amazon being 5 to 10%, 5 to 8%. Now they're getting up to 40%. When you have FBA and you have costs and you look at all the sunken costs, you look at the advertising, just to be able to be and compete competitive on Amazon, you have to pay for advertising. So your margin's just eroding away. And so a lot of market manufacturing companies are now developing their own marketplaces, their own places to sell, because they can't afford to make margin through the internet like you used to. It's like selling in store. It's like going back to selling retail, yet they're not merchandising you, they're not retailing you. They're just essentially you're putting your own listing up, you're doing all the legwork, yet they're taking massive fees. So there's workarounds of this stuff. There's ways in which we can get around these things, but the fee climb is and now, being that there's a conglomerate of companies at the top, the little guy has to get creative, and that's something that I think we'll work on and be able to help you with, especially through this whole series. Selling
Jeffrey, I'm
on
going to jump in with one question.
Go
So
for it.
one question from the audience: do those 25 to 30% fees include fulfillment and shipping?
No, not necessarily. So the FBA means the fulfillment by Amazon. Essentially, you would be like in their warehouse, and you have to actually pay for storage per cubic foot. So there's fee to store there, and then there's shipping cost incurred, and they kind of bundle it together. The marketplace fees alone are 20%. So yeah, it would not necessarily include shipping. So
Thank you.
in some cases it can, in some cases it can't, and it also depends on the category. So they have different percentage and fee structures per category. Like if you sell cosmetics, it's certain. If you sell, tire, it's different. Size. There are some cool shipping methods. USPS has a cool program. For some reason, I'm blanking off the top of my head what it is, but it works really well for small parcels, and they'll do like and it's the cheapest shipping method available. So as long as it's okay going ground. So yeah, not in all, not in every case, to answer the question. And then to win on Amazon, you got to have seller ratings for one. So ratings is important. Amazon's always going to put the customer before you, so you always fail. And that's just honest. Like, I've never had a time where Amazon's like, "Our bad, we're sorry." No, the seller is the one that takes the punches on Amazon. I've had clients where we've sent product, a $3,000 unit, and they return it, an RMA, and we get back like a stuffed animal in the box. And we go, "Hey, they sent us a stuffed animal back, not the product." And Amazon goes, "Not a problem." So there's horror stories left and right, and essentially the customer just got a $3,000 product for the cost of a $2 stuffed animal. So that stuff happens. There are controls and things you can do, but getting creative, building your own marketplace, building your own platform is definitely a direction that folks are going. Um, Now the next thing is we'll go through a little bit about Google PPC pay-per-click. A lot of folks are using pay-per-click. I've managed $1 million a month in ad spend, all the way down to 2,000 a month in ad spend. So I've been doing PPC since PPC came out. Understand it well. A lot of folks do this wrong. Using Google Ads can be very effective and very important, but at what cost, and what expertise the level is that we need to do that. If your website has no traffic to begin with, you're going to have to probably be expecting to pay for some level of traffic to kind of get the ball rolling. Google also has a slanted view of organic first paid. They really like people who pay them. That's kind of I wonder why. They're here for us. No, they want you to pay for ads. They do. And if you pay for ads, then your organic traffic tends to improve with it. Um, they won't tell you that. Some people might say that that's not the reality, but every single person I know that's run ad spend has had a better organic growth. Uh, their algorithms like it. So something to think about there. And then the change in algorithms with Google, the fact that they're using voice now. So phrase matching is so much more important than keywords. Think of terminology like you would talk into Google or Alexa. Hey Google, look up air filters, or hey Google, I need to, so you're seeing a lot more your talk search essentially. And that talk search is creating and generating a different type of, it's kind of like in English class when you're told don't type how you talk, don't write how you talk. So it's the same idea. Is the opposite of that. Is essentially you have to write how you talk, and how you'd ask for things, and how you'd say things, and that it will create a different result for those types of things. The Alexa, the Google, the fact that voice to text is becoming such a monstrous player in this, and their AIs pick up on it. In addition to that, obviously machine learning, but I won't bore you with that. So that kind of covers this whole slide. Any questions with like this? I know it's a lot of information. I'm just trying to give everyone as much, insight as possible, especially when it comes to transforming a company altogether. But any questions here? Are we good?
One question. So does
Sure.
talk verbiage go in where keywords are placed, or is it evolving into a new era?
Yeah, so yeah, good question. Complicated question. So phrase matching has been around a long time, and that's a phrase. So shoe store near me. Um, Now it would be like, if I'm talking, I'd be like, Google, find a shoe store near me. So there's differences between those two things, and so you would run those phrases differently in your search terms, in your AdWords. And the same would go for how SEO is written as well. And we can go into a little bit of SEO with Q&A if you guys want. SEO is going to be written, search engine optimization and search engine marketing is going to be written different on every platform. So you write ads differently on Walmart than you do on Amazon. You write ads differently on Home Depot than you do on Walmart. So it's never just a copy paste bundle thing. A lot of people do that. It's not as effective. And then on from a margin standpoint, that is also a challenge. So yeah, so phrase matching, and then you can do exact phrase matching. So like exactly they type that, or are they grabbing like the 3 keywords within that phrase? those are things that if you Google anything, you'll see highlighted words. Those are what they're grabbing. But again, it's going to come down to title descriptions and things, which I think I have up here. Where is it? So meta titles and meta descriptions. So your website can organically, Google's bots can crawl it and get it from your website, or you can write your own meta descriptions and meta titles. And that's the title that you see in a Google search, organic term, and then that's the description that follows. And so those things have to match the content on the page for it to rank well. And that's where we'll go into this next part that I think is important on rankings. Organic. I always talk about organic rankings because you're not paying for it versus PPC. You're getting more bang for your buck. You're getting traffic without having to spend, $1 a click or 50 cents or 150 or up to, I've seen clicks up to $30. So, it will help you win more. But the drivers, I think consumer behavior drivers, the buyers are younger now, both from a buyer standpoint, from a B2B perspective. They're in their 30s or early 30s, and they grew up with a cell phone. They grew up with technology. They grew up on the internet. Versus the Gen X or Boomer generation where they didn't have that. So what we're seeing is that buying behaviors are changing drastically, and that's obviously driving a lot of this digital transformation. So a lot of folks are happy that the COVID happened in some aspects of, not happy that people are sick, but happy in the sense that, hey, I can just stay home, order everything on the internet. I like doing that anyways. Some of us are like, I hate that. I want to go to the store and have that experience. And so what we've seen is that the buying behaviors have changed. The government recently, signed an executive order essentially saying that, hey, buy US. In addition to that, the GSA changed this last year, where now they're down to, I think, 6 total categories from 22 total categories. To sell on the GSA is a lot easier than it was before. So selling to the government, getting on the GSA Advantage, getting on the DoD Mall, those are all going to be things that manufacturers are going to want to take advantage of, because there's tons of opportunity considering the United States government is the largest purchaser in the world. So with that being said, those are opportunities that exist now that didn't exist 2 years ago, or were really hard to get on the GSA a few years ago. Now it's becoming a little bit easier. But in addition to organic traffic, this slide kind of tells you a little bit about our results, what I've done. And I tried to make it simple. So yeah, top left, 12 ranked keywords to 486 in 2 months. And by ranking keywords, that means that they're gathering some level of rank. They could be on first page or second page, but they're usually highly ranked keywords. Keywords are highly searched, and then the traffic can be consumed is 1,000 visitors a month, all the way up to hundreds of thousands of visitors a month. Top right was 3,000 organic to about 8,600 in 2-year period. Bottom was the largest increase. That was 3 years, 22,000 to over 100,000 organically ranked keywords. So they're seen everywhere for all kinds of different things. They're a manufacturer that sells direct. And then bottom right, 0 to 4,200. And then I kind of put a fun little thing. I can't tell you who they are because I don't want to get sued by my NDAs. And I'm sure you guys understand that. So, but for the most part, it can be done, is what I'm trying to explain here. And it can be done very well and effective. It's just the way in which you do it and how you do it is going to be the difference between winning and losing, especially with the 25,000 new sites hitting the internet a day. Any questions on kind of organic traffic or things along these lines after we've built websites and talked about a lot of stuff so far? So
Nope, no questions specific to this.
just a quiet audience. Okay. All right. Everybody, come on, you gotta throw me something. Somebody's gotta give me
I've
a
got
slider.
one for the
Throw
end,
me a
so.
curveball. I don't know. Go for it.
Well, one question that came in. So is it true that the marketplaces, especially Amazon, will introduce their own version of your product if your product is extraordinarily successful?
Absolutely true. Fact. 100%. Yeah. So what happens is if you're on Vendor Central, And Vendor Central is when Amazon buys or procures your product and then sells it themselves, essentially. So they'll buy it at like dirt cheap and then they'll sell it. If it hasn't a large amount of success, they will then have a team source that product outside of your product, walk around, if you have a patent, walk around that patent in some aspects, make a similar or not identical product, and then they will shut you off. It's happened to about a dozen companies I know of. So yes, that's why I don't like Vendor Central. I'm not saying anything. I mean, as a person that sells on the internet for lots of companies, I'm the least fan of Amazon of all of them, because they care about the vendor the least. They treat the vendors like horrible. They treat you like criminals a lot of times. Their algorithms pick up stuff that isn't even true, like trademark infringements, and just it is just a tough place to sell. It wasn't always that way. I don't know what they've done to make it so hard. A lot of people are like, well, if I'm not on Amazon, where can I'm not anywhere. And that's not true. I have companies I've worked with that sell tens of millions of dollars a month without Amazon. There's tons out there. It's just Amazon's tough because they're a monster. They're so big, you don't even talk to people anymore. It's become that. So yeah, that is true, and it is something to be conscientious of big time.
Couple more questions if you don't mind.
Yeah, of course.
Off with the going back to keywords. So
Yeah.
the question is, how quote unquote different are different keywords? How wide of a net do companies need to cast in determining their keywords?
So it depends on market, but I would say that the more specific you can be, the better. The less cost involved, right? So like say an example is um, I like using keywords off of like a specific, very much more specific, especially initially. I'd rather have less clicks on specific keywords than more clicks on general keywords that aren't going to convert, because Google's going to judge me by my bounce rate. They're going to judge me by the things that aren't succeeding when people come to my site. Meaning, like, let's say I have plastic as a keyword. Well, that could be anything. So if someone types in something plastic, you show up, you're not what I'm looking for. I go to your site, I'm on 1 second, I bounce that. It's going to damage your ranking in Google's perspective. I'm presenting your information for the word plastic. So phrases I think are work well. And then I'll also think about a deeper focus. It's okay to have a hyper focused keyword effort and not a lot of traffic, because a lot of times you're going to get better traffic. And it isn't about the amount of visitors, it's about who buys from you, right? So I don't really care if you have 10,000 visitors to your site. How many sales is that generating? The sales portion is so much more important. So keywords are a very interesting thing. Use keyword planner in Google. I think that's a good tool. The other thing is Google keywords that you look for or that you're wanting to rank for, and then see what kind of comparisons are up there from an ad spend and an organic stance. So doing a keyword search in Google, and do it through incognito, so that way they don't catch your cookies, and that way you're it's not taking your previous search traffic. So if you do that, do it through incognito. And then there's tools that we do a free assessment. So like if you send in your website, I'll pop out a free assessment into this group. I'll do that. Anyone that attended, if you guys want us to send you like kind of your breakdown of how you're looking right now online, we'll do that. Won't charge you for it. We'll just do it for IMEC. But yeah, keyword is tough because and then costs per keyword. Also misspellings is also something to consider. People type fast, they misspell all the time. Google will give them a suggestion, but a lot of times you'll be right there on a misspelling. So that also can play a role. Hopefully they answered the question. Hopefully.
I think so. And then the next question actually ties in directly to the screen that you are sharing.
Yep.
So the request is, can you dumb down what these 4 charts are telling us? The question is, I don't follow what it's relating and what I should take from it.
Okay. Yeah, so these charts are just showing essentially the green marks that's going up. It's just showing the growth in organic traffic. So see, I have the left says organic clicks. So essentially essentially what it's saying is the top left, when they started was 12 in November, and then to December it was at 486. And then like here's 2017 to 2020, 21, right? So right where we're at today. And that shows you that we went from 3,000 in 2017 all the way up to 8,686. And then the bottom left, or bottom right, is 0 to 4,200 in November 19, January 2020, as an example. And then the bottom left is 22,000 and then up to 110,000 ranked keywords. And the way that you can find those is you can go on like Moz, SEMrush. Like I said, we do them. So you could send in your domain and we'll send back what your organic rankings are, which keywords you're ranking for, what position they're in, how to improve those positions, what URLs they're attached to. So does that clarify the chart there? I know it's not the prettiest thing. I had to throw it together in like 25 minutes. So
this is essentially how people are, the keywords that people are using to find the company that with which you're working.
It's the performance. Yeah. So we look at it like, what do you want to be seen for? And then you also have you have local keywords, and then you have, let's say national keywords or international keywords. So do you want to rank from a local level, or do you want to rank on a national level? Your keyword effort is going to be different between the two. You can do both simultaneously, but it is going to be different.
Do you want one more now, or do you want to keep going?
Oh yeah, keep going. Yeah.
Okay.
Let's go for it.
All right. So this next one says, I thought that Google teases me by temporarily boosting my search position and then moving me back down to encourage ad purchases.
They can. Yes.
Okay.
That's a good, yes, they can. Absolutely. And, let's not be, we always have to say not be naive. Google is there to make money. They don't care about your success. I like Google as in a lot of aspects, but they're a capitalist company. They're about making money, and they're about profit share, and they're about shareholders, and da 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 da. So yes, if you're spending money, they like you a lot more than when you're not. But I've also had clients that have had an extremely large amount of success on pure organic traffic. Usually that pure success comes after a long period of time. The changes you make organically now might not take effect for 3 to 6 months. That's a long time. It sucks, especially with the speed of the internet. But that's kind of the way that it works. The changes I make today and the improvements. The other thing that you can do to circumvent that, now they just removed this like 2 months ago, is you could have them re-index you, meaning that if you added a page to your website, you could resubmit that page, and you'd automatically, they would send their bots within a 48-hour period to your site, crawl it, re-index you. You can't do that now. They took it away because of COVID, they said, which I don't think that that's the case. I think that they knew that people were asking for re-indexing so that they were getting ranking. But what you could do is you could resubmit your sitemap every certain period of time. So if you make big changes to your website, resubmit your sitemap. What it's telling Google is that you're making changes to your site and that you're evolving. Google likes that. They like speed. So they measure a lot on speed. They measure a lot on usability, bounce rates, things like this, KPIs to them. Their algorithms have those specifically. And so if you're resubmitting sitemaps as you make changes to your website, it shows you're active, and it shows that you're evolving. And to their algorithms, they tend to eat that up a bit. So those are things that you can do so that you're not having to always pay to get in the game. But unfortunately, it is a pay to play game in a lot of aspects, and a lot of people waste a lot of money on pay-per-click because it's just not done right. So hopefully that answers that question.
So
if it didn't, tell me that was awful, Jeff. So.
Made sense to me.
Okay.
So those are all the questions I have so far.
Those are those ones. Okay, cool. This is just, I kind of put this slide. It's just, there's my LinkedIn info, companies I'm involved with. Obviously, this is a new one that we're really excited about. These are the courses, some courses that we teach. We do SEO course, we do Amazon. We have a lot of the stuff going on. But the cooperative was designed to help manufacturers design and develop their business without the cost. It's really frustrating from my standpoint as someone that works with companies that are middle market to lower middle market, that in the small business, is I like seeing small businesses win, and I get so frustrated that these big companies just eat up, and are totally eroding margins and taking advantage of the smaller guy who doesn't have the deep pockets. So a lot of thought process went into building this co-op, and to allow us to be able to kind of have a unified group where now we can compete. Now we can spend what the big boys spend. We can then go after these bigger opportunities as a unit versus independently, um, and game them at their own game. And so that was the thought process and the passion behind building it, um and something we're pretty darn excited about. And then the last slide I have here, and then we can just like throw a million questions at me, is this is like my master level course that I teach. It's a lot. It's heavy duty, but if you want a PhD in e-commerce, you take this course. The so I put this up here just to show you a little bit about how deep we really go. Today we're just scratching the surface. We're really not getting into the weeds of the specifics of everything, but I really wanted to give you guys kind of an overview of kind of what's popular, what's hot, what's going to happen, why it needs to happen quickly, and then allow you guys, everyone here at IMEC and everybody attending, to have the resources you need. Don't hesitate to reach out. Don't hesitate to call. I love small business. My favorite people to work with. I'm old fashioned. I like getting my hands dirty. But these are the things, as you become more successful in e-commerce, it becomes a game of inches, literally a game of inches versus a game of miles. Um, and so those are some things that happen. Scaling challenges are going to happen as you grow your e-commerce business. You are going to hit ceilings. Um, those marks tend to be around the million mark, 4 million mark, 10 million, 20, and then about 50, and then 100, and then it's a whole different company. Um, but hopefully that makes sense. And then I wanted to just give enough time for anything you guys want to throw at me. I'm open ears, but hopefully I covered what you wanted me to cover today. I felt like I talked a lot. I don't know if I
That's
like
why we
that,
brought
but
you in.
I don't know if I like that idea. So hopefully it
So
was insightful.
no, this was a really good introduction to, and I think it kind of sets the stage for additional sessions that we're going to be hosting so that people can continue to learn and kind of dive deeper into, some of the individual topics. So I do have another question that just came in for you.
Throw them out there.
So how would you think about manufacturing companies who do not sell to consumers, but they sell B2B? Can this be
Yes,
available and worthwhile for them to invest in?
absolutely. Yeah, B2B sales, like I said, well, I think I said it early on, is B2B sales and B2C, is the lines are getting more blurred, meaning that B2B has become a much larger internet play. But the way that you're wording and the way that you're presenting your products online from a B2B standpoint to a B2C is very different. From a B2B standpoint, you might be developing and designing a keyword or internet strategy for a buyer, someone that would procure your products, or a bid opportunity or things like that. So with that would come the terminology and the phrasing and the effort to capture that audience. So it wouldn't be like a consumer, it would be like, the person that's selling the components to the headphone, not the headphones. And so yes, B2B is huge, massive opportunity, and you can sell an insane amount of B2B, and you can get bid opportunities through e-commerce all day long if you design and develop your e-com strategy around that B2B sale. So around what buyer is going to search for. You have GSA buyers now that are procuring on Amazon. I mean, you have buyers that are buying, missile components on Amazon. I mean, I've seen it, so as those lines fade and you're a manufacturer that sells B2B, boom, you can sell B2B through the internet and effectively. The other thing is be strong on use cases in descriptions. And we didn't really talk about that, but a lot of folks don't do that enough. And what I mean by use cases is, how is someone using that product? How is someone interacting with that product? And then listing and managing your products in the way in which people use them versus the way that it's described, right? So it's like, a lot of people will just describe a phone as it's got all these features like an Amazon listing versus, what the phone can do and how it's going to enhance their life might be a little bit different of a listing than its features and benefits. So there are a lot of that. Video is very important. Photography, imagery, huge. Having those things is going to be helpful, but there's a lot to it. I wish I could just like throw out one thing and it would be the golden nugget, but they all have to work together like a team.
Mhm. So kind of a follow-up to that last question. This person says, my business has a range of products, some that naturally fit into an e-commerce world, but some have a fair amount of technical issues to work through before making a purchasing decision.
Okay.
So how does e-commerce deal with that challenge? Kind of those use cases as you've described.
So I'd say that, like, in one aspect, it's relatively simple, understandable for a consumer, and then the other one might be you're selling to an engineer. Is that reasonable
I think
to
so.
say?
Yeah. Yep.
So they I know engineers well. Damon's an engineer, one of my business partners. So you have to talk engineer language. You have to be able to speak in their terminology and phrase things in the way in which that they would look for things, and the way in which. So you got to kind of, I always say, like, reverse engineer the sale, reverse engineer how they procure their products. If you have engineer friends, if you have engineers you have good relationships with, ask them, hey, how are you finding so and so's product, or how are you, because they're going to be the breadth of knowledge you might need to be able to position your products online to capture that audience specifically. And that's that engineer that's looking at these highly detailed items. Now, if they're custom products, then there's a lot of ways to go about it in a custom manufacturing stand, where project-based custom manufacturing, I'm using as an example, is, all right, so if you're a custom manufacturer, what are you good at? What's the highlight of your customization, and then how do you reach that? Because the engineers of today, these younger engineers, they're Google searching, CNC component that does X, or they're looking at specs, or they're looking at these types of details. So you have to get into the weeds heavy on that stuff in order to be successful there. But yeah, there's a huge, I mean, yeah, I've had a client in the past that sells to engineers exclusively, to engineers at Lockheed, Northrop, Moog, like all the big government contractors, and they just use a lot of the, I don't want to say geeky terminology, but I don't know, engineering terminology, is that even a word? But just that type of, the way they look for things is very, fact. So yeah, you can dominate that if it's done right, for sure. And there's not a lot of people that do it, so that's a benefit for you.
All right, a couple more.
Go for it. Keep shooting them. Good.
So related to B2B, this company just started with B2B. If they are just starting with pay-per-click, is there a best practice to tiptoe in to show proof of concept?
Yes, there is. Okay, so the big mistake in PPC is that people go in too illustrious, okay? And I don't know if anyone fishes here. I fish. I'm not like a hyper fisherman, but I fish. And with pay-per-click, I look at fishing like, okay, we have to put lines at every level of where the fish could be. So they have to be either shallow, mid, deep. And so we drop lines in each of those areas because we don't know where they're going to bite. And so a lot of the initial start or in the beginning of pay-per-click is discovery. So expect I'm going to spend a certain amount of money to discover where the interest lies within my product line, where the success is happening. I might be getting traffic, but I'm not getting conversions. I might be getting conversions with little traffic. Okay, I'm going to now position all my budget there, So you have to kind of design your pay-per-click advertising around where the interest might lie, and you don't know that. No one knows that in the initial. I could go into a company and they could sell shoes, let's say, or manufacture shoes. In the beginning, I don't know what the best maybe PPC is for shoes. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to test. A lot of folks initially for low barrier entry use display ads. A lot of, Google Shopping is a huge opportunity if you have the right imagery. But for the most part, it's a lot of test and adjust, test and adjust. And we're not talking test for 2 weeks adjust. We're talking test for 2 days adjust. It's a very quick, fast thing. And if you don't have skilled folks with PPC, just let me know. We've got I've been doing PPC forever. I'm, good at that stuff. But yeah, 100%. You have to test a lot. That's the thing with all of this stuff is it's evolving and moving so fast. You have to be constantly moving with it. A lot of folks will build a site, put some ads up, and it's like the set it and forget it commercial, and it doesn't work. Your organic's going to go like this. Your traffic's going to go like this. Unfortunately, you have to just kind of be on top of all the changes that happen.
All right, I think I've got time for 2 more questions. So number 1, how do you convert or encourage B2B customers to begin using your e-commerce sites, knowing that they still need to create purchase orders in their systems?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so the great thing is if you already have customers, it's training your customers on your new process. Typically customers are, if you're making it easy for them, then they're going to be happy about that. So that's a retraining effort that your team would have to make towards the customer. So hey, so and so customer, we've moved to this more efficient and effective way. We think it's going to cut a lot of your time out. You're going to be able to make your requests here, and you can make it a lot more of like make it a lot more beneficial for them to do it that way, and then that will generate less work on your end from the initial RFQ, RFP, or whatever. So yeah, that's more of a retrainment, retraining of your customer base, and they like that stuff. I mean, especially the younger generation or middle generation, they love to just, hey, I can just send over my spec and you'll bust a quote out and send it back. Cool, awesome, great. I'd rather do that than call you and tell you what I need. But it can be complicated. There are things you can put into your website that do that as well. So that do the variations, so they could spec it on your website. I mean, there are integrations that do that. They could submit their drawings on your website. They could do everything that way if you wanted them to. That's all available, and those tools exist. So hopefully that makes sense.
Yep. Our final question regarding cybersecurity. Do you see fraudsters or virus attacks?
Absolutely. Yeah. This is a great question. I'm surprised that it's funny. It's the last one. Massive problem. Ransomware. Hospitals are seeing it in most cases the most because they're critical, mission critical, let's call it. So ransomware attacks are very, very prevalent now. People have weak security on their websites. An average website, I know, I'm not a hacker, but I know people can probably hack into a normal website inside of 5 minutes. And then they can take control and shut you down and all kinds of stuff. There's 2 types of attack, or well, there's more than 2 types of attacks. So there's 2 major. There's DDoS attacks, which you see banks get a lot. The DDoS attacks is where they ping servers until they crash, and then they have to get them back up, and essentially they overload the server, they freak it out, they cause it to have a heart attack is what happens with the DDoS attack, DOS attack. Then you have ransomware. Ransomware is where I take your company hostage. I go in the back end of your site, I go into the back end of your ERP, and I take your company hostage. I send you a message that says pay $10,000 in Bitcoin here, and then I'll give you access to your business again. And the FBI gets involved in those things. It's definitely a federal offense, no doubt. But these are offshore companies. These are groups in every Russia, Africa, Europe. This is where this stuff's coming from. So having good security is very important. Having good SSL is extremely important. Now Google won't even rank sites without SSL certificates, but having a good SSL cert in a company that does good security, and then having multiple essentially like barriers, firewalls and different things, is going to be huge. But yeah, cybersecurity is a real problem with the amount of websites going up. It's becoming more of a problem. I don't know if you guys watched the Super Bowl and CBS had an outage like right before the game started. They didn't say what that was from, but I can probably guarantee it was some type of DOS attack that some foreign country did. So, but those are the things that happen. And it sucks. Ransomware has happened to hospitals where they have to pay, $1 million to get their hospital back, all the machines, all the computers, the charts, everything. So yes, making sure you have strong cybersecurity, strong internet security. We do a lot of that. One of my colleagues is one of those genius types that does that for a living for big government organizations. So yeah, it's definitely something to be conscientious of. Make a secure site. But if you're on most platforms, you have backups. So if your site does get hacked, you can roll with a backup pretty quickly. If you have an on-site server, then you need to be even better security versus like AWS or something. So hopefully that makes sense on the last part.
And we at IMEC will have a cybersecurity, actually it'll be like a 15-part series coming up that will start at the beginning of April. It's targeted more towards Department of Defense, companies that are in the Department of Defense supply chain. But if it's good enough for the Department of Defense supply chain, it's good enough for you. So much more information will be coming up on that shortly. I am going to go ahead and take the screen back from you, Jeff.
Go for it.
And first off, I want to say thank you so much for being with us today and helping to, like I said, kick off our series on sparking new growth through e-commerce. And as you can see, we do have 4 more sessions that are coming up. So those are on the screen right now. We will meet again on Friday morning, and then next week again, Tuesday and Friday, and then on Tuesday of the following week as well. So much great information coming up. We are very, very excited to have you guys continue to join us for those next sessions. Just a couple of next steps to keep on your radar. We do have some other sessions that are very strongly tied into growth and making sure that you are doing all that you can to keep building your business growth. We have our final session of the Boosting Sales Skills session that will be focused specifically on social selling. And how companies or how individuals can use their social profiles to increase relationships with current and potential customers. Next week, we will be focusing in on LinkedIn, again, kind of tying into that social selling idea, how you can really maximize what you are doing with your LinkedIn profile for connecting with customers. And then we have a couple of other sessions, series that are coming up. One is going to take a look at continuing that virtual sales skills training. And then we will also continue on the e-commerce marketplace with another session or series, that will start in mid-March. So much more to come. We know, as Jeffrey said, we've only touched the surface on this. So many more sessions to come on this topic. We also encourage you to visit the imec.org/events website to see some of these other sessions that are coming up. Wanted to I didn't really make the connection on this one before, but tomorrow, the Illinois PTAC, which is based at Bradley University here in Peoria, is going to be talking about breaking into government contracting. And so that's, another potential client base that you might want to tap into. So that's tomorrow afternoon. I think it starts at noon. You can register for that through the imec.org site as well. And then a couple of big events we have coming up. On March 24th, we have our Get Tech Ready, looking at advanced manufacturing specifically for small and mid-sized manufacturers. And then our annual conference on enterprise excellence, framing the future, coming up on March 30th and 31st. So later on today, you will receive an email from me that will have the recording of today's session. Will also include the handouts and the slides that Jeffrey went through, so you can have those checklists at the ready and kind of begin processing through those with your team. We'll also include some helpful links and just a reminder of the upcoming sessions as well. So thank you so much for being with us today. We look forward to seeing you back here on Friday morning at 10 o'clock. We will have another session to keep this conversation going around e-commerce for manufacturers. So thank you again, Jeffrey, for being with us, and everyone have a great day. Stay safe. Take care.
Thanks.
Bye-bye.